Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to be talking about features that people would like to see added to Battlefield. Now, I've already asked my community on Facebook what they would like to see added to Battlefield, and I'll be going over their list, and then I'll be adding on to that with some of the things I would personally really like to see either in Battlefield 4 or a future Battlefield game. Now, interestingly, one of the most requested features was to remove KDR from your battle log profile to further insinuate that the game is not just about killing enemies but more about teamwork and accomplishing the objective. I think this is a great idea, and ever since Battlefield 3 really made KDR a huge part of Battlefield, I think it's honestly been a bad thing, because you'll see somebody with something like an 8 KDR and you're like, oh my god, how is he so good? Well, that person just plays jets all day, or helicopters. It would be much cooler if they moved the KDR stat down into specific vehicle locations or specific weapons. Like each gun would have its own individual KDR stat, and this way people who really want to see what their KDR is with a specific vehicle or weapon can go and find that, but it's not going to be front and center on the main page. And I think this could be taken even one step further and to maybe remove KDR from the score screen at the end of the game or display it in a different way. I think DICE and EA have to recognize that when you put certain stats or bits of information front and center at the end of a game, you're sort of telling the community that, hey, that's what's most important, and that's what you should be looking for each game. If they started putting teamwork multipliers or teamwork scores at the front and center, all of a sudden you might see people competing a lot more to get those teamwork points. Now, a cool suggestion that I got on Facebook was to put supply crates or class change crates at either the deployment bases in Conquest game modes or even at some of the flags themselves. This way, after you capture a flag and you decide that the class isn't going to be appropriate for taking the next flag or you need to get more ammo, you can do that. Great idea, something that's in a lot of other games out there. Why not integrate it to Battlefield? Now, with that question, one of the most requested things on Facebook was better netcode, and that's a pretty bland blanket statement, but it does sort of say what the community feels currently about the netcode and the smoothness of the online game. DICE recognizes this. They've been working pretty hard on getting the netcode a lot better, but it's still good to sort of say, hey, you know what, the game is not exactly where we'd like it to be. We'd like the netcode to be a lot smoother, feel a lot snappier. And I agree, it would be nice. Hopefully this next patch will be a huge step in the right direction. Now, I would like to propose a feature that's probably going to be a little bit more controversial because it borrows essentially from the Call of Duty franchise, and that is the Pick 10 or the Pick 13 system. Basically the system that allows you to allocate a certain amount of points to every loadout, and different kit features will take certain amounts of points. So if you're going to translate this to Battlefield, you could say, okay, here's a really good assault rifle, the AEK, maybe that's worth 3 points, but if you want to use something that's a little less OP, the AK-12 is only 2 points. If you want to put an optic on there, it's going to cost an extra point. If you want to run iron sights, it won't cost you any points. And you could translate the system to gadgets and field upgrades and grenades and sidearms. Basically all the things you put on your class could have points associated with them, and this way when you want to try and balance or compare weapons to each other and say, hey, the AEK is better than the AK-12, you say, yes, it is, but it also costs more points, and therefore you don't have to necessarily balance every single gun and gadget against each other perfectly, which is pretty much impossible to do, especially with the massive arsenal in Battlefield. For players, this could potentially reduce a huge portion of the balance arguments out there, and for developers, if you want to make a gun that is as accurate to the real-life version, shoots at an incredibly high rate of fire and does massive damage, well, then you can just give it a higher point allocation rather than having to try and dumb down the abilities of the weapon just to make it balanced. Now, another thing that has become extremely popular, especially with shooters as of late, is customization, aesthetic customizations that update the look of your soldier, the look of your weapon, a lot of cool things that can distinguish yourself from other soldiers or players on the battlefield. But at the same time, you want to avoid the situation of people running around with neon orange guns. You still want everybody to look like they're part of the same army. I think it would be awesome to add in custom helmets, sunglass options, maybe things with like customized plate carriers and patches and camos on there. Nothing that would set you too far outside the realm of what you would expect to see in an actual army or military, but you could then make some of these aesthetic options like really hard to get or hard to unlock, and it would be a neat way to sort of distinguish yourself, a little bit of bragging rights on the battlefield. And they already do this to a very basic extent with camos. camos. Unfortunately, the camo system, in my opinion, and from a lot of people I've talked to, is really underwhelming. I think a lot of the camos not only look really bad to begin with, but they're not really customized to weapons or soldiers or vehicles. They're just kind of like a generalized camo that gets slapped on top of anything, and it doesn't look good on most of the stuff you do. It would be much cooler to have specific customized camos for weapons, for soldier uniforms, and even for vehicles. Tying this in with a progression system built around assignments that reward players for both teamwork and longevity and skill would be a great way to sort of bolster the game and reward players for putting in the time and effort. Battlefield already has one of the most extensive weaponry arsenals out there. It would be amazing if that could also be matched with an aesthetic arsenal, something to kit out your soldier with and make them individual. That would make Battlefield truly the king of customization shooters. Now, another popular request from server admins is better tools. The ability to turn off weapons, turn on weapons, turn off gadgets and accessories, or turn them back on. Customize the game modes better. Currently, the tools out there just are not very good for Battlefield servers, and since this game is so intricate and requires a lot of balancing, it would be so great if DICE bolstered the server tools, especially considering that on the PC side of things, almost all the servers are run by the community. There's not that many official servers that people play on, and in this regard, it would be a great way to reward the community by giving them decent tools to help them customize and manage their servers. Now, something that I would personally like to see on the PC side of things is a squad join option. A while ago, consoles got the ability to join as a squad. I haven't personally tested out this feature, but if it works as advertised, it means you can squad up outside of a game with your friends and then go and search and find some servers, and it will join you as an entire squad on the same team, so you can play with your friends and use teamwork. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I record an episode once a week of Squad Up, where me and 4 other YouTubers get online, we play as a team and try and use tactics and stuff like that. However, this is an incredibly hard show to record sometimes because getting on the same team is almost impossible, especially if you don't join the right server that's got some weird auto balance algorithm in there. It can be almost impossible to get on the same team, and sometimes we just give up and fight against each other. This seems like a ridiculous thing to me, considering that Battlefield is supposedly all about teamwork, yet it can almost be impossible to get on the same team as your friends. It's frankly really stupid that this game hasn't addressed this issue yet, at least on PC, and it needs to be, at least for a future Battlefield game. It would also be kind of cool if they had a vehicle lock for squad members only option in this game. Countless times have I been in a tank, getting out of the tank to repair it or something like that. My teammate grabs the tank and drives away with it. Or I'll land a helicopter, I got a friend gunning for me, they get out to repair the helicopter and somebody else jumps in the gunner seat and they refuse to get out. This can really kind of ruin the gameplay sometimes. It would be great if you just had a simple squad lock option on some of these smaller, more team-oriented vehicles like tanks or attack helicopters and stuff like that. Transport vehicles probably wouldn't need it as much, but it would be great just to have that as an option. Something that I would like to see a lot more of is battle pickups for indirect fire weapons. A great example of how this could have been better used in Battlefield 4 is with the UCAV. The UCAV, when it first came out, was incredibly powerful, and it got to the point where when enough people got it unlocked and were using it, it was breaking certain game modes and just causing a lot of grief. And of course, the natural response to this being so overpowered was to nerf the weapon so hard that it's basically unusable in most game modes. And instead of having to nerf these weapons that are designed basically to function in a specific way and to be awesome and to blow people up, you could just make them battle pickups with like one shot. You run around the battlefield, find it, launch it, blow somebody up, and then continue on with your game. I feel like UCAVs, mortars, XM25s, maybe even claymores if you want to go that far, could work really well as battle pickup items, and then people wouldn't get spammed by them, and you could actually make them more powerful and more fun to use. Now, the last idea on the list here is a little bit more controversial, and it has to do with the vehicle spawn system, which really hasn't changed too much since Battlefield's inception with Battlefield 1942. You used to only be able to get into vehicles by running over to them and hitting E or whatever your button was, getting into the vehicle, driving away, or flying away in it. Now you can actually spawn directly into them on the launch pad, or sometimes you can spawn into an airplane that's already in flight. So those have been the improvements with vehicles so far, but it doesn't fix some of the issues where people are just camping vehicles or spending a lot of their game time sitting in the menu waiting for a vehicle to spawn, or sitting on a launch pad waiting for a vehicle to spawn. It's really boring doing this. It makes it so that you're not playing the objective or helping your team out in the downtime, and it also means that a lot of players are going to be fighting over vehicles and wasting time and tickets for your team. It's a spawn system that's been around for so long that I think people forget to look at it as something that could actually be changed or improved upon, and frankly I think there's a lot of great ways to fix the spawn system. The latest Battlefront game demonstrated a great spawn system that allowed you to transition from infantry combat to vehicle combat back to infantry combat very easily and fairly, in my opinion. You could even adapt the system a little bit more to Battlefield and allow you to queue up for vehicles that you wanted specifically. Say you don't care about tanks or APCs or boats, but you really want to fly that little bird helicopter. Well, maybe there's a lot of other people on your team that want to do that. What if you just queued up for the helicopter, and then when you're running around as an infantryman, when it came your time to go into it, you could basically just kind of transition to the helicopter, very similar to the way you do it in Battlefront. Honestly, the vehicle spawning system can get pretty complicated once you start thinking about the details of it, but I think this game could really benefit from something that allowed a more fair spawning system, allowed certain players to get their time with certain vehicles rather than let the dedicated players just hog one vehicle all game. So anyway, those are some features that some of my Facebook community would like to see, and some of the features are things that I would like to see added to the game. Is there anything that you guys would like to see added to the current Battlefield game or future Battlefield games? Let me know in the comments down below, guys, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.